Welcome back. Speaking at a campaign event in North Carolina over the weekend, former President Trump said that Israel should attack Iran's nuclear facilities in response to last week's missile barrage.
They asked him, what do you think about Iran? Would you hit Iran? And he goes, as long as they don't hit the nuclear stuff. That's the thing you want to hit, right? When they asked him that question, the answer should have been, hit the nuclear first and worry about the rest later.
Trump's remarks came in response to comments from President Biden, who urged Israel to show restraint. Joining us now, former Supreme Allied Commander of NATO, retired four-star Navy Admiral James Stavridis. He is Chief International Analyst for NBC News and author of The Restless Wave, a novel of the United States Navy, which is out tomorrow. Admiral, congrats on the book. Thanks so much for being with us. Let's get your reaction to what we just heard there from Donald Trump. Stark contrast from President Biden, who's urging Israel to show restraint, though unclear if Israel will listen. But Trump taking the opposite approach and risking real escalation.
It's a perfect contrast in two approaches to foreign policy. One is swing for the fences, go for the big shot, and clean up afterwards. The other one is measured, sensible, think through what you're going to do. If you are sitting in Israel, which is how we ought to frame this, because in the end, these aren't decisions for a former president or even for the current president. These are decisions for Israelis. If you're in Israel, you're thinking, okay, what am I going to do in response to 200 ballistic missiles, which came raining down on my country just a few days ago? You're going to look at everything from cyber to targeted killings of leadership, to going after nautical targets at sea, to going after the air defense grid to knock it down, to going after the military-industrial complex. For example, where did those ballistic missiles come from? And finally, on the target set are going to be the energy fields, the oil, and the nuclear sites. They're all going to be examined as targets, and I gave them to you in ascending order of controversy and difficulty. So at the end of the day, Israelis will decide. If I were leading the IDF, I would not recommend at this moment going after nuclear sites. I would go after probably the military-industrial complex, Jonathan.
So, Admiral, today, of course, the one-year anniversary of the October 7th attacks there in Israel. Let's get your thoughts on that in this solemn day, but also how that moment really has reshaped the globe. The Biden administration foreign policy completely had to be revamped because of what happened there. And it is now also a political issue, both at home and abroad.
Yeah, let's start with just the immense human cost. And you can look at the straight up numbers: 1,200 Israelis killed, 40,000 Palestinians killed, hundreds of hostages. Those are big numbers in and of themselves. Recall that the populations here are only 10 million in the state of Israel, maybe 5 million Palestinians. So those numbers feel to those populations like 35,000 Israelis killed, 3 million Palestinians killed. So the human cost here cannot be overstated, and in particular, the hostages, I think, tragic. Secondly, this has put the Palestinian question back on the international agenda. Your point, it's reshaped how the world, frankly, is looking at the region. And then third and finally, Jonathan, you hear that specter of sovereign state war, serious war between Israel and Iran, which would almost certainly drag in the United States and potentially drag Russia in as well. These are big movements that have occurred as a result of the actions of a year ago. It's a good day to sit back and contemplate how we need the kind of restraint we talked about a moment ago to avoid this going into a wider war that could crack the global economy.
Really important words this morning. And we're grateful to former Supreme Allied Commander of NATO, retired four-star Navy Admiral, our friend James Stavridis. Thank you, Admiral. We'll talk to you again soon.